You're tuned in to Career Currency with Kareem Perez, a podcast for people who are interested in unlocking their potential and increasing their professional value. Here's your host, Kareem Perez.
Okay, what's up, everybody? Career Currency podcast. We're doing it virtually today. But Career Currency is a podcast for people who are interested in unlocking their potential and increasing their professional value. Welcome back to another episode. I'm super excited for this one today. My name is Kareem Perez. I'm your host, a digital marketing consultant, career coach. And really, what we do with this podcast is we bring you the marketing leaders, the entrepreneurs, and all of the successful people who have come before you in order to share secrets, share ideas, and share career hacks on how you can improve your business, how you can improve your career, and essentially improve your career currency, which is your professional value, so that you can, make moves and make more money. So yeah, I'm excited to do this interview today. Today we have AMA marketer on the rise. Okay, her name is Chevrier Schwartz. She's the founder and CEO of Sampler. She's an entrepreneur with a marketing background who built this technology platform for product sampling. And I really, really love this idea. I really love this concept. I have to dig into it and try it myself. But today, Sampler is the leading digital product sampling platform, and it helps brands to deliver product samples to digitally targeted customers. And who doesn't love free stuff, right? So, of course, this is like a strategic way to help brands get their products into the potential customers and let them try it, let them sample it. The company's network now reaches over 50 million consumers in 24 countries and serves some of the largest brands in the world. For example, L'Oréal and Unilever. Marie, I'm so happy to have you here. How are you today?
Doing good. Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here too.
Yeah, excited to have you. And yeah, maybe just talk about intro yourself and tell people a little bit about yourself. I know I gave you the professional intro, but yeah, tell us a little bit more about you and how you got into starting your own business.
Yeah, of course. I'm a marketer by trade. I started my career ultimately. I started my journey into marketing, going to the University of Ottawa and studying marketing, and then I ended up working for an experiential firm while I was in university, handing out free product samples
Yeah, yeah.
and being the brand ambassador that was kind of, giving the free shampoos and the free hummus on the street corners. And that's when the first, inkling of the idea of Sampler came to mind. Even back then, I was just really skeptical about the channel. I understood that getting a product into your hands for the first time is the most, telling moment within a consumer journey. Yet it wasn't targeted, it wasn't measurable. So I was just like, come on, if everything's programmatic, if everything's targeted, if everything's measurable, this should be the moment that we measure. Anyways, so I continued my career. I was young at the time, had no idea like what it meant to start a business. So I went to J. Walter Thompson and worked in advertising. I actually represented the Tim Hortons account for a little bit, worked
Nice.
on a few CPG accounts. But I remember during that time, being like in the weeds of like measuring how much foam we were putting in the coffee, like so that the photo was perfect and making sure it was just exactly 1 inch. And so that was kind of my advertising days. And then I was getting a little bored with that, and I wanted to do something
Mm,
that was more digital and tech forward. So I looked up entrepreneurship. I literally Googled entrepreneurship, and I wanted to know what it meant. And I ended up finding one guy on LinkedIn, who was the head of the Montreal Entrepreneurship Society. Met
okay.
up with him, asked him to have a coffee with me to tell me about his journey. and he gave me my first startup job. And I worked at a startup called Drop Gifts, eventually became a co-founder, moved to New York City, lived a crazy startup life for 2 years. And I got the bug. Like I just really knew that tech and startups was meant for me. And so I took kind of all this journey to eventually say, you know what, I'm ready to start my business. And in 2013, I started Sampler. I told you the entire thing. We could just end the podcast there. I don't know why. I just
I got questions. I got questions. I got questions. But no, that's really interesting. And actually, what I wanted to ask you, kind of while you were talking, is when you joined that first agency, did you have entrepreneurship in mind? Like, what did you? Were you like, okay, I want to learn this so I can do it on my own, or were you just like exploring at that point?
like I don't know if I'm oversimplifying it, but like I feel like I had no idea what entrepreneurship meant. Like my grandfather and my grandmother, they were entrepreneurs. They had started their own businesses. So I guess I knew that that was like an option, but it it was like they owned a taxi business and a convenience store, right? So I mean, I was exposed to entrepreneurship, but never in marketing, never in tech. So I don't know. I feel like I really wasn't thinking about it, but I was showcasing so much entrepreneurship in wherever I was, like in university. I ended up starting my own kind of mini group of brand ambassadors. Like I just got all my girlfriends and I was like, hey, like we can do this brand ambassadorship. And like we would get it. I was doing a little bit of it, but I didn't realize I was being
Right.
entrepreneurial. So it's interesting.
Okay, nice. And then so you recently won an award, right? What does it mean for you to be recognized as the 2022 Marketer on the Rise by AMA Toronto? And that's an association that's been empowering marketers for a long time, right? Like 70 plus years.
Yeah. Frankly, I was in shock when I received the call. The American Marketing Association and I had just kind of started working together. I had the opportunity to be part of a discussion that they had done just a few months before. So I was just getting to know the organization and so impressed by the incredible membership that they had. And so when I got the call, I was like, oh my God, are you sure? Like, I couldn't believe
Yeah.
it. And you know that feeling has only been heightened after the incredible in-person event that they had to inaugurate the five marketing Hall of Fame legends. It was so incredible to hear all of their stories and just to have the opportunity to share the stage with them in person was like the most enthralling thing ever. Like I feel like after 2.5 years of being cooped up in my Zoom walls, it was just
Yeah.
so cool to connect with people who have been there, done that, and like have careers that span over 40 years of journeys and learnings. And yeah, I left very, very, very inspired.
Nice. And so for you, right, like I read through some of your story, and through building Sampler, talk about just how you built it, like how you built a team, and some of the key learnings that you found in terms of like starting up your business and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the day that I decided that I was going to go forward and start the business. And um it's interesting, like it wasn't like a monumental moment, right? Like I feel like I that's my first learning is starting your business is not necessarily this kind of monumental moment where it's like the curtain rises and like
Right, you
like
cut the ribbon and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, right? Like you started a business, like it's just taking that first step, and that first step doesn't need to be big, right? So for me, the moment where I feel like I started my business was the day that I literally registered the name Sampler, like, and I decided that I was going to do it. But like, the first step with that was like talking to a designer and thinking with him about like, okay, what's the look gonna look like, and it was just kind of these small incremental steps, and him and I coming up with the word sampler, and then after that me registering it on the government website and like getting like a tax ID. Like those are like little things, but they all add up. And so anyways, first lesson is it doesn't need to be, it's going to be small incremental steps. It's not going to be like this big inauguration. And so that means like, don't wait, like just get started, do the first step. Like don't wait for a big sign, because it's going to come. And frankly, after that, it was about getting up every day and just doing the work of listening to my customers and really building on what they wanted. So for the first little bit, I promise you, no one wanted to talk to me about digital product sampling. Like people were just not there in 2013. Like they were just starting to figure out like, what is an influencer? What is a Facebook page? How do I get more fans? Like people weren't even collecting first party data then, like it wasn't even a thing. So I literally, for the first little bit, sold anything I could that was similar to my idea. So I actually had a side hustle which funded Sampler, which was the marketing shop, which was a marketing agency where I managed social media. I managed like influencers. I did whatever I could to be close to my client. And every time I could pitch Sampler and get more insight as to why they weren't ready or what they like, when they would buy something like that, how should I position it? And eventually I was able to sell my first client into a digital sampling program. And basically it was all mock-ups. I had only like Photoshop PSD files. And I was like, well, it would look like this. And the client was like, sweet, I love this. Let's launch in 60 days. And I was like, can I get 90 days? Because I literally had no tech. And eventually the first version of Sampler was literally a Google form where people would go and enter like first name, last name, email, and it would feed into an Excel sheet. And when it reached 1,000 samples distributed, I would literally just kill the link because I just didn't want more people to claim. So again, like small incremental steps. And
sorry, and I just want to go a little bit more into the customer side.
Yeah.
And understanding your customer, and I guess being adaptable when you start to figure out like you're not really as sure as you thought you were who your customer was.
Yeah.
So can you talk about like how you use some of that data and what some of the key data that you look at when you have this spreadsheet of 1,000, and how important is that data collection and data analysis?
So on the B2B side, like my clients or the clients of my clients? Like
you choose.
Okay. So when I was speaking about being customer obsessed, I was customer obsessed with my brands, right? So when I like my Sampler's business is B2B2C. So I sell into consumer packaged good companies. So I would literally just find a way to help my consumer packaged good companies and understand their needs. And if that meant I had to do an influencer campaign or manage their social media page for a little bit so I could get closer to their goals and their objectives, I would. And then I got a few of them on a retainer. And then my recommendation on like from a marketing agency side was like, well, maybe we should test sampling. And then I would start kind of introducing Sampler. And that worked really well. And so eventually we got, it was really, it continues to be important. We're 9 years into the business in October. And still today, I go through cycles of customer discovery, which I'm deep in right now, because at Sampler, we are creating a space, like distributing product samples to a digitally targeted consumer and bringing that in home is a very, very new concept. And it's newer to the market. It's really picked up steam with the pandemic. But that means that my clients are constantly like figuring out new ways of leveraging it. And I need to stay really attentive to that. So it's very important, and it never stops being important, even like 9 years in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, and then talk about the B2C side in terms of the data that you
Yeah.
gather, the data that you look at, and what's important.
Yeah. So for our consumer packaged good brands right now, what they've realized over, the last, I'd say, 5 years of marketing is that owning a direct to consumer relationship and understanding your consumer is going to be key about how they build to really truly build their brands. And the key reasons for this is one, the rise of e-commerce. People are buying online, and
Right.
they're expecting to discover products online. Two, a very, very strange relationship with their retailers. Their retailers, the people that are like the stores that are distributing the products of our brands, they're in fact competing with the brand. They're putting private label products right beside it.
Right, right, right.
And so everyone's fighting for that shelf space. Everyone's fighting for that attention. And for a long time, that consumer data was primarily owned by the retailer. So that, and then the third big thing, which is really, really scary, is that advertising is losing efficiency, is digital advertising specifically. So consumers are tired of the good old banner ad. They're tired of that medium. Plus, they're actually concerned about their privacy. So how are we creating more engaging digital advertising experiences is another reason why brands are seeking incentives and samples and deeper funnel activity. So first party data for all those reasons is becoming a really important thing. Now, with a sample, what you can do, if I offered you a sample, would you give me your first name, last name, email, and shipping address? Because I need to ship it to you.
Yeah, of course, of course.
So getting that in any other medium would take so much
Right.
so much time and so much capital. It would and so that basic concept of just getting first name, last name, email, shipping address, just because of the transaction, is already a really, really big valuable thing that you can get from a sample. Now, above that, if I was to tell you, hey, if you tell me about your eating style, you'll match with products that fit your diet. Would you tell me about your eating style? Probably, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so that's what we do at Sampler. We have a reciprocal transaction between consumer and brand that says, listen, I need consumer information. I want to connect with you on an ongoing basis. But in return, I will give you something of value. I will give you a taste of my product. I will give you a try of my cream, whatever it is, whatever category. But in order to do that, let's make sure we're a good match. Like let's make sure that if you're gluten-free, I give you my gluten-free product,
Right,
right? So
right,
I don't know. I think of Sampler in a simple sense as like Tinder for samples.
right. Right, right, right. No, that's good. That's good. And matching it up is really, really important. So talk about building the business a little bit. Like, I'm really interested in terms of now the market in terms of careers and hiring, retention, talent development, things like that are just like top of mind in a lot of conversations that I've been a part of. So, and I know you took a leave, right? And you had your team run things for a bit while you were gone. So maybe just talk about building a team, building a culture, and working with some really good people. Specifically, too, what comes to mind is delegation and not trying to do it all yourself. And I'm interested to hear a little bit about your thoughts there.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Um, yeah, I mean, my theory has always been to lead with the heart. So like from the beginning, I knew that I wanted to build a workplace which was one that I wanted to work at. And I've worked in bad workplaces. I've worked in places where I didn't feel supported. And so I knew where I would want to work. And so whenever I have a question about like, how should we go about this? Or how should we think about this? I literally say, Marie, what does your heart tell you? Like I really stop and think like, what does my heart tell me? What would I like to hear? And that's been a really good gut check throughout the way. Um, so that's how it started. Now, eventually, I was privileged enough to have gotten a lot of great support from the brands that we work with in funding this idea, the my investors in funding this idea, and then I had the resources to hire people. And I the main thing that I tried to do early on was fill my weaknesses. So, how could I, like, I'm not really good at numbers, like finance, like detail, not my thing. Like I'm a visionary. I need someone to integrate for me, right? So that's a great place where I go and build and find people that are just stronger than me in these specific areas. Um, and then once you put them in place, to your point, you need to give them the trust and you need to let them run. And so I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at, and I know what others are good at. I recognize their strengths, and you just kind of got to let them fly. So yeah, you were talking about my leave. I took a leave when I had my son Dawson, which was 14 months ago. And I tried to take 6 months. I will be honest, nothing to do with my inability to delegate, but everything to do with like just missing work and the
Right, right,
and
right.
so I did 3 months full time, and then after that I just kind of needed to get back in and get involved in the projects. I just missed the thrill. um but yeah, like, and the reason I was able to do that is because I was able to give people strong ownership of their turf. Like, I have a strong executive team. I have someone overseeing revenue. I have someone overseeing operations. I have someone for every job. So at that point, I'm really the chief orchestra. Like, so they can live without the chief orchestra. They know how to hit the notes.
Right,
So
right.
yeah. Is it chief of orchestra, I
I'm
think.
not sure actually. Okay, so what would you say is your greatest leadership accomplishment in marketing? And like why are you proud of it?
Hmm. Um, I'm very proud to have challenged the status quo as it relates to product sampling. Like, I think I always say, like, I'm a mission driven founder. If what I leave behind is the fact that my name goes beside the invention of data driven product sampling, like that will be like a really huge win. And um, I feel very encouraged by the fact that sampler is being, like, if someone says data driven product sampling, it's synonymous with sampler. And
Amazing.
I'm very, very proud of the team for getting to that point.
That's amazing. Congrats. That's great. Um, so what would you say is like some of the the trends that you're seeing in marketing in general? Where do you see things going, and what should some of like younger marketers, people that are just like learning? Because one of the things that we find is deciding where you want to go, right? So it's like, oh, should I go into like e-com? Should I go into web design? Should I go into social media? And at the Tech Effect, that's what we do, right? We kind of help them find, okay, what are you interested in? What's your skill set? Give them kind of career direction and options. So yeah, what are some of the trends you're seeing, and what would you recommend in terms of upskilling, and kind of maybe even platforms? What should people be paying attention to and learning?
I love that. Yeah, so I'm really, really, really into retail media networks. I think they're definitely going to be the next trend, and certainly Sampler has been doubling down. We just recently closed a partnership with Kroger and with Target, where we're managing their digital product sampling programs via their retail media networks. And the reason that they are so important right now is, first, they're spurring up everywhere. They basically think about everybody, like Ulta just launched one.
So can you break down what's a retail media
Yeah,
network?
okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
let's start with that. So a retail media network is where a retailer would decide that, you know what, like, we have so much data, we have a very unique set of audiences, and we want to create a media network that where we sell those audiences out to the open market. And so just like a brand might buy media on Facebook right now,
Right.
or on Instagram, they can go, or Meta, now they can go and buy media from the Kroger media network,
Right,
or
right, right.
the Target media network, which all have their own names. Kroger's is 8451, and Target is Roundel. So you can go and buy media from there. Um, the Now this is kind of spreading itself even further into, like, now Marriott Hotels just launched a media network. So they're not a retailer, but they have a whole
Right.
slew of data surrounding people who travel often, right? And so the reason this is happening is because people are not sharing first party data for no reason anymore. When the Apple iOS changes happened around privacy, that's a big trend that happened. And so that would be trend number two. Basically, one day, Apple asked every iPhone user, would you like to share your data? And I believe something like 80% plus said no.
Right.
And so imagine the impact that this would have on advertising for retargeting and all of that. So people need first party data. People give first party data, whether they realize it or not, when they shop. They give first party data when they stay at a hotel. And so these companies who are traditional players are now saying, well, I have first party data and I can sell it. So for brands, it's a really amazing opportunity, because I could go very niche. When I partner with a grocer and do my media with them, I can target someone who buys gluten-free cookies. I can target someone who has a high number of baskets per week. I can target someone that likely has a big household because they buy $500 worth of groceries each week. So it really opens up a marketer's opportunity for targeting. And I think that that's going to be the next big trend, because there's a decline of first party data on your typical media networks.
Interesting. So even just to highlight the data side, going from third party to first party is key.
Very much so. And so you were asking, like, what are some things that I could brush up on skills for? I really think that reading about first party data, reading about privacy, and reading about retail media networks will blow your mind if you're a marketer. Like there's just like so much fun stuff like that I think are going to bring up really, really smart ideas for businesses.
And do you do speaking? Do you do like what are some of your interests professionally? Like do you outside of running the business, do you do speaking? Do you do events?
Yeah. So my biggest thing is mindfulness. So I
Right.
meditate,
Right.
and I also am doing a little bit of writing right now, surrounding mindfulness as an entrepreneur. So I'm that's my side project. I'm hoping to launch a blog soon that will be really focused on that, because I feel like as entrepreneurs, we need these escapes. We need these reminders of um, to kind of keep us grounded through this crazy journey. So yeah, I right now my writing is mostly happening on my LinkedIn. So if you follow me on my LinkedIn, you'll see
Okay.
like I'm pretty quirky about I make a, I try and be like raw about the journey, and yeah, I think that's my personal mini project that I'd like
Nice.
to leave behind.
Nice. And another question that came to mind earlier that kind of slipped my mind now, I remembered, of course, is just in terms of digital transformation, right? And digital sampling. And you mentioned kind of like some people are just not bought in, right? Whether it was in the beginning when you just started and people didn't understand, or some brands just might not be into it, or they might not see the value. So could you talk a little bit about like pitching your idea, selling your idea, and getting buy-in from like different brands, partners, you know?
Yeah. Great question. So um, lately I've had the opportunity to really think about this a lot, because early on, I think the biggest barrier that entrepreneurs come against is um, it's not necessarily that people didn't believe that it makes sense. Like everybody that I say, hey, we hand out samples on street corners randomly. Why don't we do it in a targeted way? Everyone goes like, oh my God, that's so good. Like it makes sense. And a lot of people say like, Marie, I wish I came up with this. Like it's so simple. And so everyone loved the idea, but what I didn't do right, or knew like what I wasn't there at, or where early on you struggle with as an entrepreneur is who is going to care enough to buy it, right? So it's like
Right.
there's a difference between, oh, that makes sense, and here's $10,000, right?
Right.
So finding the right buyer, finding the right product market fit for that buyer is really interesting. So early on, it's about finding that first buyer. For us, it was the brand manager. But what's really interesting is that over time, as the market has evolved, our persona has changed. The brand manager used to manage the sampling programs. They still do, they still own all of the samples. But interestingly enough, the brand manager doesn't get promoted for doing digital product sampling. The head of data or the head of CRM or the head of
Right.
e-commerce gets promoted for doing digital product sampling. So over time, these new positions started adding themselves that actually have been critical to how fast our business grows. So it's interesting when you're starting a market, it's like maybe the person that's really, really going to care about what you're doing, maybe they don't even have a job yet. But if you're a visionary, you know that job will exist one day. And so how can you kind of keep going? And get to a point where there's like I fundamentally believe there will be a person whose entire job will be managing digital product sampling for consumer packaged good brands. And we're starting to see that with our brands that are on the high end of our spectrum of adoption, right?
Amazing. That's such good info. Okay, so as an entrepreneur, what's some of the best business advice that you got, and like again, just from a lessons learned perspective, what are some of the key takeaways that you've received over the course of your journey? And I love the fact that you called it a journey. And why was that important to you? Just to have, you mentioned having different people in your corner and different people supporting you. So, what's some of the advice you received, and how did that change the game for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that advice, like every few months, I feel like I have a new one that's guiding me. The one that's guiding me right now, and that one's been pretty constant, is the fact that this is a marathon, it's not a race. And I think that if you're reading tech news right now and you're reading financial market news, you can see why it's a marathon and it's not a race. And we're seeing a lot of companies that, were going for the quick sprint, we're raising tons of capital, we're throwing money at it, and hadn't really figured out where their market really was, what was their product market fit, hadn't really figured out basic unit economics for their business, and ultimately are going to fail because they went too fast. So my best advice with that mindset in mind is like, know where you're going, right? Like I'm actually like rewriting this, but I have a document called My Building Blocks, and it's ultimately the building blocks of what will take me to the full journey of Sampler and to the full vision. But none of the building blocks have dates, none of them, because I, as the leader, can only control so much. I can control what my team is focused on, with what my current resources are focused on, but I can't control how fast the market will adopt my technology. I can't control a financial downturn. I can't control a global pandemic, right? And so because of those things, if I am clear on what the building blocks are, what are the signals that the building block is ready to be built, and if I'm clear about that with the rest of the team, then we'll know when to accelerate, then we'll know when to slow down. But I cannot define the timeline. And I think that's what you got to know, is like,
Right.
you're getting into it for the long marathon, because there are no quick wins. There really aren't. There are, but that's just random luck. It's not
Right, right, right.
it's not how 99% of businesses get built.
Nice. Okay, so we're coming a little bit towards the end of our time, which has been amazing. I'm so inspired and like motivated by our conversation. I just want to talk about mentorship a little bit. Do you have any like formal mentors? Do you have people that guided you through building the business, or even just life in general? For us, bridging the gap and having like mentors and sponsors and people that can, help you get to the next step is so important. And so, have you ever had a mentor, or do you mentor others?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have like 5 mentors right now. So totally have always had mentors. I think people have mentors but don't realize they have mentors. But I'll talk to you about like the different types of mentors. So I have a coach. So this is a business coach, someone who makes me keeps me on check. Like, hey Marie, you said you would do this last week, did you do this? Like,
Right.
it sounds very crazy, but when you're the leader, sometimes you like, I have a board I respond to quarterly, and I report to quarterly, but otherwise, um keeping me focused. I have no one keeping me focused and accountable, so my coach helps with that. My mentor group is has now gone into away from generalists. Like early in my career, I had mentors who were, ex startup founders or ex advertising executives or things like that, and they were more generalists, and they would help me think through a slew of problems. Now I have like a mentor who knows everything about retail media networks. I have a mentor who knows everything about logistics. I have a mentor that knows everything about consumer packaged goods and building consumer packaged goods brands. And I meet with those folks and just talk industry and talk what's happening, talk what's in their mind. On an ongoing basis. So I'd say they're more like advisors, but it's my kind of peer group. And then I also have an entrepreneur peer group, which I think is really, really good. So it's actually all women founders who are part of one of the VC firms that we got investment from called Stand Up Ventures. So we meet every 2 weeks, or actually it's every month, and we focus on one key topic. So it could be like fundraising or whatnot. And so yeah, I find they're my mentors, like my peers are my mentors too. So
Right.
yeah, that's and then I do a bit of mentorship. It's not very structured right now, but in the past I've mentored for the DMZ, and now I more so have a few entrepreneurs in the CPG and tech that will reach out and ask me to advise, and so I'll meet with them and help where I can.
Nice, nice, nice. All right. Well, great convo. I have a couple of, we have our speed round, top tech recommendations. Not all tech, but I guess, yeah, the first question would be, yeah, favorite podcast aside from this.
Yeah, aside from this one, which I'm excited to be on, I really like, if you're in retail or consumer packaged goods, I love the CPG guys podcast. It's really, really it has really, really strong speakers, and it's all about retail trends, and so that would be my favorite.
Nice. And what about favorite book?
Ooh, favorite book. Uh, I would recommend, if you're a founder, the CEO Tightrope. It's basically speaking about like the tightrope of
Right,
being
that's
a
cool.
CEO.
Yeah.
If you're a marketer, I highly recommend Obviously Awesome. It's a product positioning book from April Dunford, who's a friend and a board member of Sampler. But product positioning is a really, really, really interesting concept of like, you know, it's, you create a product, you create a brand, but also like, but where do you fit in the market, and how do you want to be perceived, slash how does your brand or how do your clients see you in the market.
Right. Nice. All right. And favorite place to travel?
um my husband and I would probably say London. We like used to go there for business a ton, and we loved it. It's just like a perfect European New York.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I've been there a bunch of times too. I love it there.
Yeah,
What about food? Favorite food?
pizza, but I'm very picky.
Yeah, what's your toppings?
It's not less about the toppings, but actually my favorite pizza topping would be my where my husband's from on Long Island. There's a salad pizza, and it's literally like a pizza with salad on top. It is so good.
Nice, nice, nice. All right, and last question, like maybe, yeah, just a word of advice for somebody. I know you gave a couple before, but somebody starting, they have this vision, they want to bring it to life. some advice there.
So I just want to say you can do it. I know it could feel so daunting, but there was literally nothing special about me and my initial insight when I started, except I had an idea and I went for it. I have no special skill. I have no I'm not trying to be down on myself, but other than grit and want and ambition, I didn't have a formalized training. I didn't have a lot of resources. I just started. So there is no better person than you to do whatever you've set out to do, and just go. Set goals and go, like that.
Yeah, yes,
That
I love
sign in the back.
that. All right, Marie. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time today, your insights, your knowledge. I definitely picked up a couple keys that I'm going to be starting to implement right away. Definitely dive into the retail sampling space and those networks that you're talking about. But yeah, everybody, today's episode was amazing. We talked about entrepreneurship. We talked about mentorship. We talked about the marathon versus the sprint concept in a few different angles, which I really love that concept, because yeah, it's all about the long haul. It's all about how you can build over time, whether that's through your career or whether that's through building a business. There's the ups and the downs. The challenges will come, but if you stay gritty, you stay resilient, and you stay focused and mindful, then you'll succeed. So again, thank you for tuning in to Career Currency. The podcast is here to help you unlock your potential, increase your professional value, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining.
You're tuned in to Career Currency with Kareem Perez, a podcast for people who are interested in unlocking their potential and increasing their professional value. Here's your host, Kareem Perez.